Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me for Cookie Fun today. My name is Miss Kayla and I'm happy to help you get back into the holiday spirit with some cookie decorating and cookie recipes to share. Let's get started with what we're going to be working on today. We'll be decorating some gingerbread cookies and Linzer cookies. We'll also be sharing some recipes for snickerdoodles and sugar cookies. Let's get started on the icing we'll need to decorate our cookies today. We're going to be using a glaze. And you'll need a cup of confectioner's sugar and 2 tablespoons of milk. So that's what we'll have for our glaze. And then for our royal icing, usually if you make that yourself, you'll need meringue powder or egg white. So sometimes it's just easier to get the store-bought kind. So right now, I'm just using some Pillsbury icing. But again, if you'd like to use royal icing, you can always use the meringue powder or the egg white. What else will we need? Well, since we have our icing, we'll have to decide what colors we want our icing to be. And that's why I have some gel food coloring. Gel food coloring is better because it doesn't thin out your icing, and that's definitely a need when you're dealing with royal icing. You'll also need some toothpicks as you go to mix in your icing with the food coloring. You'll also need some bowls to separate out your icings if you're doing different colors, and a plate to put your cookies on. Since we're talking about our icing, we have some bags for our royal icing and some piping tools. You'll need some spoons for mixing, and I prefer using a knife to spread out your glaze. We also have some scissors for cutting our bag tips. And lastly, for our Linzer cookies, I chose strawberry preserves as my filling. So let's get started with our gingerbread cookies. Alright, so for my gingerbread, I have a couple of different types of gingerbread. I have this one here. And I also have this little girl gingerbread. So we're going to be decorating them in different styles. So today I'm going to be making my glaze icing blue. So we need our gel icing. You can use whatever color you'd like. Okay, so I'm just mixing the gel in. And you might go through several toothpicks so you get the shade that you want. Let's see where we are. So I have my glue ready, and I'm going to get started on this cookie, and I'm going to do the piping around her white. And I'm going to be using some of my special sprinkles that I chose. Let's get started with that. We need our thicker icing. And just make sure you stir it pretty well. So before you put your icing in, make sure you put this part in. That way you can switch out your tip. Alright, so as you can see, we have this in right here. And this is when you need your scissors to cut off the tip. Like so, make sure you get all the plastic pieces out of the way. You don't want that mixed in with your icing. Next, I'm going to put my smallest round point on. And now we leave the last piece to secure it. As you can see, when you're adding your icing, there is a max amount that each bag has, so you don't want to have it overflow on you. As you go to put it in the bag, use it do it this way, and then your hands won't get covered in icing when you go to use the bag. And again, you want to think about what colors you want to use. That's why we have the different bowls here. We can separate out our icing. Let's just get started with a small amount now. Put it all the way down so you can get it close to the end. Usually I like to use buttercream when doing cakes, but with the butter it's hard to keep your icing thick and staying in its shape because buttercream tends to be pretty soft. So I'm going to set this aside for now. And I'm going to start out with my glaze first. So I only put a little bit of glaze on at a time. If you want a thicker amount, I would advise doing this first, and then you can do a flooding technique, which I can show you. We'll actually do that now. So let's see where I want her dress to start. We want to make an amount around the edge, and that way we won't have to worry about the glaze dripping off the cookie. Like I said, usually I leave my glaze on pretty light. I have people in my family who aren't crazy about icing, so it just depends on what works best for you. Okay, so just as an example, I have my edge here for her dress. Now we can start filling it in with glaze. Again, just be careful that you don't have your glaze going everywhere. I'm just filling the area in with some icing and trying to spread it out even. Okay, so as you can see here, we use the flooding technique to fill in our cookie. So this is going to take a lot longer to dry just because of how thick we put on the glaze. So our next cookie will show you how to do a very light glaze. Okay, so now we can see what we can do with this character. Let me just make a face on our girl cookie first. Just like little dots. And just a smiley face. Sometimes the template cookie cutters are easier just because they're easy to follow along, but I prefer the plain cookie cutters because you can just let your imagination run wild. So let's see what I come up with today. So I showed you the glaze that you can use for the girls' dresses, but let's try it on the boys now. So like I said, I usually put my glaze on pretty thin. Let's do that now. So I just have a little bit of glaze on my spoon, and I'm just gonna dab it on my fist. You can always put a little bit more on if you need. Okay. So this one has some long johns on, so let's just continue to decorate that. Then for the girl, let's get started on her. See. Get her a nice necklace. And I think we're gonna have a pink dress. Her burgundy one. Let's get started on her burgundy dress. And I'm actually going to use some white for the bottom of the dress. And I have a nice little skirt started. I'll just continue to fill that in. And I can use some of my finer sprinkles. And I'll put some stars on her necklace. There we go. Okay, so now that we have 2 gingerbread cookies done, it's always good to let them set for a couple minutes just for the icing to set, especially if you're working with glaze. And then it's good to just have the cooling rack you can sit the cookies on just so they can set up, so you can keep moving through all your cookies. So, since we already gave an example of decorating gingerbread cookies, I thought it would be nice to introduce you, if you haven't done Linzer cookies before, to Linzer cookies, which are sandwich cookies. So they're pretty easy to decorate. You'll just need to add some jam on the inside to make your sandwich, and then decorate it with a little bit of confectioner's sugar at the top. So as I've mentioned, I chose some strawberry preserves as my filling for the cookies. So let's get started with some jam. You can do whatever you want. Some people like peach preserves, or you could do raspberry, whatever you enjoy. Strawberry is popular at my house, so I thought it was the perfect choice. And you can put it on as thick as you want. Like I said, some people like more icing, they like more jam, so whatever works for you. Okay, so we have some here, and we'll complete our lovely little sandwich. Okay, and then we'll just need a little strainer just to dust the cookies with. And we just need a little bit more confectioner's sugar, or powdered sugar, whatever you like to call it. Let's just put just a little bit in. And then you can just dust your cookies so it looks beautiful. Okay, so while I continue to decorate my gingerbread and my Linzer cookies, we'll take a moment to share the recipes with you and how to make them. So I'll see you back here in a couple minutes. I hope everyone had fun decorating cookies with me and feeling inspired to try some new recipes. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. It's good seeing everyone. Bye!